You are listening to the Batflip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Batflip Podcast. My name is Damian here with my co-host, Matt, coming to you on June 1st of 2021. How you doing, Matt?
Doing great. Just hanging out. Not too much going on. Hope everyone had a good Memorial Day, and thank you to all the servicemen and women out there who has risked their lives for our freedoms. And I think a lot of people kind of forget the meaning of that holiday, and it's really important. I think it's a really good thing to have and think about those people. So
Absolutely.
it was hope everyone had a good weekend. So.
Yeah. Did you do anything special?
Nothing really that special. I went to the lake and on Monday, but other than that, I played golf one day, and I think hung out with some friends on Sunday. I had a friend come in from out of town I hadn't seen in a while, so went and hung out with him. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a good weekend for me. Hope everyone out there had a good weekend. How are you doing?
Doing good. Went to the drag strip on Saturday. Hadn't been out there in 4 or 5 years,
Oh
so
wow.
went out there and hung out with my dad and kind of his buddies and stuff. Kind of saw some people I haven't seen in that long, and it was a nice day. And then just kind of hung out the rest of the weekend. Had a buddy's birthday yesterday that we went to, so nothing too special over here. Just trying to beat the 105-degree weather that's going on right now. You don't want to be outside in that. You want to stay inside as much as possible.
I hear you on that. Hear you on that. So.
But this is going to be a jam-packed episode. We had some, a special announcement today honoring a former legend of the game. We had some cool MLB records get broken or set, I should say, not really broken. And then, a player that's been playing for a long time moving up the all-time lists. And then we're going to go through our kind of monthly breakdown and give you guys what's kind of the status. I think it's been a couple weeks since we did that. Kind of fill you in on what's all changed. And then next week, we look to bring to you guys kind of like a third way mark of the season and say what's happening so far and give you guys our prediction, or not predictions, but what our MVPs and all that stuff would be at that point. But that's next week. This week, let's focus on on one of the cool things was actually just announced today, and that is that the inaugural Lou Gehrig Day will be actually tomorrow, and it's a special thing because it will be the anniversary of the day he made his major league debut in 1925 as a starting first baseman for the New York Yankees, and the date that he eventually passed away on in 1941 after his battle with ALS.
Yeah, that's really cool. Cool thing for Major League Baseball to do. When you first told me about this, I was a little worried they'd be taking doing the like number thing like they do for Jackie Robinson Day, and I think that should be reserved to Jackie Robinson Day. But this is really cool. I'm glad. I think it's great for they've had some of these things for ALS like the Ice Bucket Challenge they had several years ago, and they've had some other stuff, and I'm really glad that they're going to have this and bring an awareness to this disease, and hopefully people take it seriously and pay attention to it. Hopefully we get more ongoing research and some good stuff out of it. So I'm really happy that MLB's doing this. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so if you guys are going to be watching games either Wednesday or Thursday, because if teams are off on Wednesday, they'll observe it on Thursday. You'll see ALS logos around the park. You'll see players having red wristbands with the number 4 on it, and special patches going on. So pretty cool of Major League Baseball to, devote some time and a day to Lou Gehrig and this disease that, really took his playing career and eventually his life. So one other thing we had happen this week, which is pretty cool. We didn't, it really wasn't hyped up much, which we can talk about a little bit, but Josh Donaldson ended up scoring the Major League Baseball's 2 millionth run. I believe it was on, when was that? Was it Thursday?
Something like that.
Or no, it was Saturday. It was on Saturday. He got driven in by a ground rule double by Nelson Cruz. But like I said, there wasn't really any build up to this, it's kind of awkward because, like me and Matt both said pre-show, we didn't know this happened until it happened, or that it was even going to be a thing right until, after it happened, we all got the notifications about it.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I never thought that was something that was coming. I never even that's not something that's ever even entered my brain. A 2 millionth run, but it's as you said, you're telling me before the show that it sounds like they really promoted it with the 1 millionth run, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't with the 2 millionth run, especially within today's day of media and everything. I thought that would have been pretty cool, but it's neat. I know that the 1 millionth run happened sometime in the 70s after Major League Baseball started in the 1870s,
Yeah.
which that was 100 years difference, and this has been roughly 50 years, a little under, since the last since the 1 millionth run scored. So I thought that was interesting. Part of that is definitely the fact that there's more teams now, so more games are being played. But also, there's been an offensive bump in the last 50 years with through the steroid era, through the last several years, the juiced ball era. Offense has been up. Obviously, offense is a little bit down this year, but in the past, 20, 30 years, offense has been up a pretty good bit. And thought that was kind of interesting. It took half the time to score 1 million runs the second time than it did the first time. So
Yeah. I guess we can look forward to the 3 millionth run in about 20 years, huh?
yeah, or yeah, 20 years, 15 years. Who knows what Major League Baseball is going to do to the ball, so or the mound or whatever. So it might be 5 years as
Yeah.
far as I know.
Who does know? But also another cool thing that kind of coincides kind of with the MLB history type deal is that we also this weekend had the 20,000th player in MLB history, and that was Seattle's rookie catcher Jose Godoy.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I remember looking through the box scores the other day, and I saw his name, and I was like, "Who is that?" Because I'd never heard of him. And apparently, he's the backup catcher for Seattle. Got called up last week to make his debut, and that was the 20,000th player. I saw a tweet later on, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." That's the only time. That there's a chance that that's kind of the only thing this guy's ever going to be known for. Is he's not really a high rated prospect or anything. He's just kind of a depth piece, and no disrespect to him. I hope he does well in his career, but I don't fully expect that to be the case. So it's something he'll always be known for. I think that's pretty cool. So
What are the odds that the 20,000th player is just like a backup catcher? So
yeah,
like that's the funny part.
yeah, you never know though, because teams bring up a lot of depth pieces and send them back down and stuff. That
Hmm.
happens all the time, and then it's kind of rare that out of every 20 players that gets called up, maybe one of them's a top prospect. So
Right.
that might, I feel like it's kind of more so than you might think, but it's still interesting. It's still obviously cool how this guy is going to be the one that is the 20,000th player. I don't know who the 10,000th player was, but I'm sure that that's something that's kept in the books somewhere. And I think that's pretty cool. But
Yeah. So another thing that the last kind of record or whatever we had set was that Albert Pujols passed Babe Ruth on the all-time extra base hit list to become the fourth all-time. He currently has 1,357 extra base hits. He is within striking distance of Stan Musial for third, that has 1377, so about 20 extra base hits behind him. The interesting thing is if he can continue playing, through this year and maybe into the next year, he has a legit shot at getting to Hank Aaron, who has only 100 more extra base hits. Maybe it might take 2 more years for Albert, and that's kind of stretching it. Him already being 41, but there's a legit chance that Pujols could be the all-time extra base hits leader.
yeah, it's possible. I don't think it's very likely, as that would require, he's about 120 behind. That would require 250 extra base hit seasons plus the rest of this season to get 20, which I'd be very surprised if he has 50 extra base hits in a season again. But it's cool. Albert Pujols, we've talked about him a lot. Last few weeks with his move on from the Angels to the Dodgers, and climbing the history books. And this is one of those things that I think is what makes him so great. Is he wasn't just, well, he isn't just a, because he's still playing, isn't just a special player in one facet. It's not like he's a guy who hits 600 home runs and that's really all he does, or he's such a good all around hitter. He gets gotten a lot of hits in his career, a lot of extra base hits, doubles, home runs. He just hits the ball well. It's not one of those situations where he's just exceptionally good at just hitting home runs or just hitting doubles or something, contact hitting, just getting hits like Pete Rose or somebody. Like he's just an exceptional hitter all around. And I think the extra base hits list, and more so than just like the home run list, is something that goes to show that. It shows that, hey, this guy has put the ball, hit the ball hard in the gaps, line drives, fly balls, hit a lot of home runs, obviously. He's done it for a long time. And I saw something earlier today that was kind of interesting, I thought. And, it's something that I haven't thought about too much because everyone talks about his decline, but in the last 5 years he really hadn't changed any. He's been pretty much the same guy every year. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like he's been good for about 20 home runs and
Hmm.
about a about average to slightly below average hitter, and he doesn't play defense. So I thought that was kind of interesting over the last 5 years. So he really hasn't changed any, and maybe he can keep playing for a couple more years. So he's played pretty well since he's got to Los Angeles Dodgers. That is, but
Yeah, and I think if he doesn't have to have that everyday set like you are the first baseman role, and like be more flexible with him and be like, hey, we're gonna give you, kind of maybe what they're doing with the Posey right now is like, we'll play you for two and then you're gonna have a day or two off, and then we'll play you for two or three and then you're gonna have a day or two off. Like do something like that with him, and maybe he might be more productive and just get him off his feet so much because of those feet injuries that he has had in his career. That's kind of hampered him, especially those first, when his decline really started happening with the Angels. It was, a lot of it was due to that plantar fasciitis that he had, and really
yeah,
just being uncomfortable, on his feet, standing, hitting, running, any of that. So first, one part of that is maybe he would still be, a better hitter if he didn't deal with that. But then also now it's like maybe playing him a little bit less helps him be a little bit more productive.
yeah, and that's entirely possible. So I'm glad that he's playing well. I'm glad that he's doing these things because, I mean, he's been along for a long time, seemingly a good guy, a good teammate, and has done a lot of good things in his career. So it's good to see him continue to prosper.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump on over to our, division breakdown type stuff. Um, start with the AL East, where the Tampa Bay Rays are just coming off a major hot streak. I think it was at one point 15 games in a row they won. And they've
Yes,
taken over this division lead now by 2 games.
yeah, the Rays are really good. Um, they have just done a little bit of everything. They always do. The pitching is very good, both in the rotation and the bullpen. Obviously, I think it was 2 weeks ago they made that trade where they sent Willie Adames to the
Hmm.
Brewers for Fayerson. I still don't know how to say his name, but he's good. And then also Drew Rasmussen, who are a couple young, good-looking relievers that were with Milwaukee, who badly needed a shortstop help, and um, I saw where Firestone already saved a game for the Rays, so
Yep.
like 2 days ago. So, they just continue to do things like that, and obviously they've got some good pieces in their lineup. Randy Rosarena's a really good piece, a young piece. And they got help coming. I mean, Vidal Brujan has shown a lot of power this year in the minors that he hadn't showed in the past. And then you take a look at obviously Wander Franco's the guy that everyone talks about, and for rightfully so. I mean, he's really good. So they just brought up that Taylor Walls, who had been hitting well in the minors to start the season. Apparently, he's some like a defensive wizard type guy at short. So you add that to a team that still has some good pieces. They platoon guys really well. They play good defense. Anytime you got Kiermaier and obviously that new shortstop Walls, and then you've got Zanino behind the plate. You've got three really good defenders in the middle of the field, and that's very very underrated thing that the Rays do well. So
Yeah, and
they're a good team.
a weird thing with this Tampa Bay team is they're a team that we know that usually wins a lot of close games, a lot of one run, 2 run games. But so far this season in 1 run games, they're 7-8. And then also, it's another interesting thing about them is they kind of have different weird splits basically on how they play. So at home, they're only 2 games above 500, but on the road, they're like 13 games above 500. So they're 20-7 on the road and they're 15-13 at home right now. So you
Yeah,
expect each of those to kind of flip back around a little bit, but also their 1 run games being 7-8. They're a team that, for years and years we know how to do those little things that help you win those little one-run games. And to be about a 500 team right now, that could even look that maybe they bump that up some and get even better in that, phase of the game.
Yeah, and the Rays at 35-20. I mean, that's an incredible record. And this is a team that, lost pieces in the offseason after their World Series run last year. I mean, they lost Charlie Morton, they lost Blake Snell. That's two key pieces of that rotation last year that are now playing elsewhere. And they've just seemed to not miss a beat. I mean, they brought in Rich Hill, who's done great, and Tyler Glass now seems to have taken the next step. And they still do some other things with their staff, that like having openers, having short outings for certain guys. Ryan Yarborough's pitched pretty well. I mean, this team, they just do everything in their own way, and they do it really well. And they beat the money system. They're the modern day money ball, and that's really cool. I like how the Rays are doing things.
Yeah, and you mentioned Blake Snell, and I want to say that they got a lot of flack for trading him this year. And so far this year, he has not been good. He has a 5.55 ERA, a 4.39 FIP, and he's already walked what was it,
He walks
31.
a lot of guys. Yeah,
He's already walked 31 people to 70 strikeouts. So he has about a 2-to-1, 2.5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio right now.
yeah.
So the Rays, they got a lot of flack for trading him, saying like, "What are you doing?" Da, 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 da. Well, it seems to be working out for them a little bit more than
Yep.
we
Yep.
knew.
And not only that, but they've got the Patino's pitched in the big leagues already some this year, and he'll just be better. I mean, they got a
Absolutely,
lot of pieces. So
absolutely. Well, Boston, like we said, they're not too far behind. They're still 2 games back. They still went 7-3 this last week, but I mean, we still didn't expect Boston to be this good and to be. I mean, they're 3.5 games still over the Yankees, sitting comfortably in that second spot right now in this division.
yeah, Xander Bogaerts to me is maybe. I mean, I don't know if I call him the most underrated player in baseball,
He
but
might be.
he might be. He's really good. He's not a great defender at shortstop, and a lot of people knock him a lot for that, but a lot more than they should, because he's the best hitter at shortstop in the league by a pretty good margin. And he's another guy that does a little bit of everything. He's perfect for this type of season with the ball being unjuiced a little bit, because he's never been a guy who is so reliant on hitting home runs like a lot of the shortstops that like the Trevor Story or uh, you know uh, or Gleyber Torres or some of these guys that were relying on home runs. He's kind of does everything well. He hits home runs, obviously. He's good at that, but he's just good at everything. And I mean, he's one of my favorite players in the league right now. He's looked to me like a potential MVP candidate so far to me. And they've got other pieces too. Verdugo has been a really good piece for them. Obviously, they got a ton of flack for trading Mookie Betts for Verdugo, but the return they got in Verdugo, it has turned out to be pretty good. It's not as good as Mookie, but still, he's been good. Um, and then you look at some other guys that they've got. They do a lot of things well. Their good team. Devers is good. I mean, they've pitched pretty well compared to what we expected. Nick Pavetta's been better than I thought he could possibly be this year. Rodriguez has been back. And you might end up seeing them get Chris Sale back at some point. And not to mention the fact that their bullpen, which is full of Matt Barnes and a bunch of guys we've never heard of, has generally worked pretty well. So it's been a fun year for the Red Sox so far.
Yeah, it has been. And, right behind them, the Yankees, we're talking about 3.5 games. We expected the Yankees, to break out at some point and get right back up there. But they really didn't have a great week. 4-6 over this last 10. But that 4-6 also includes getting swept by the Detroit Tigers in Detroit.
Yeah, you've got to take advantage of games against a team like that. And the Yankees just didn't. I mean, they got beat down by a couple of the young pitchers from the Tigers, which, I mean, sometimes stuff like that'll happen. A team like the Tigers that they recently having a couple of really highly rated prospects come up like Skubal and Casey Mize. They're good. They've got such good stuff. They're top prospects for a reason. There's going to be games where they find their stuff some, and they really give a team like the Yankees problems, because their talent level of a elite pitcher, even though they may not be consistent yet. So it makes a little bit of sense. Obviously, you don't want to lose a start from Garrett Cole against the Tigers though, and they did that. And it's been a little bit of a struggle lately for the Yankees, but they're hanging in there. They've had some injury issues. Luke Voigt's down again. Aaron Judge has started to play well again, and Stanton's been hurt, and it's just it's been a little bit of everything. Gleyber Torres is struggling still. Gary Sanchez is struggling still. That's been a bad thing for this team. LeMahieu's been no, not horrible, but he hadn't been what he had been the last couple of years. I think this is a team that's going to be fine, regardless of whether they end up beating the Rays or the Red Sox, who, seem to be pretty for real. They're gonna. I think they're still gonna be the wild card team if they don't. But it's gonna be. It's good. They've got a lot of bigger fight on their hands than they thought they might.
Yeah, and I would watch out for the Yankees because Brian Cashman has shown when he needs to do a shakeup, he's not afraid to do a
Yeah.
shakeup. So he could be a team that is making to look at making a early trade deadline splash for a or for somebody to help them right now. Maybe a center fielder since Aaron Hicks is going to be out for the year. So well, let's jump over to the AL Central now, where the White Sox are still leading this division at 2.5 games over the Cleveland Indians. Kansas City's still holding in third, 5.5 back. Minnesota's 10 back, and Detroit's 10.5 back.
Yeah, this division's been really interesting this year. The Twins were the team that a lot of people expected to be good that has not been good. But the Twins have started to play a little bit better. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games. Um, they're 10 games back, so it's going to be really difficult for them to come back in the division. But the Royals still hanging in there. They had like something like a 10-game losing streak at one point, and they have kind of stabilized after that. And then you've got the White Sox, who have probably been the best team in this division. They've got gotten good pitching from Lance Lynn. Lucas Giolito, who struggled a little bit to start the season, has been a lot better lately. Um, and when you have that pairing of Lynn, Giolito, and then Carlos Rodon, who's just been spectacular this year at the top of your rotation, plus the offense that they have, which Yasmani Grandal, and has the weirdest line in baseball, but
Yeah.
Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, Yerman Mercedes, who has been struggling a little bit lately, but has had a good rookie year, and you're probably going to get back Eloy and Robert at some point later in the season. So, good job for the White Sox so far. And like I said, I was talking about the Tigers earlier, and they've got some good outings from a couple of their young pitchers recently. So that's been encouraging for them.
Yeah, you mentioned him, but I want to expand on it a little bit more. The year that Lance Lynn is having, he when he got traded over to Chicago, we were like, man, it's going to be a decent for him. He'll be an okay guy. He'll probably be third in that rotation, whatever. He has a 137 ERA so far this year.
Yeah.
Like he is having a fantastic career year, and a big part of what the Chicago White Sox are doing. So congratulations, Lance Lynn, and keep it up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy. It's just kind of weird because he throws like 80% fastballs between like a 4-seam, 2-seam, and a cutter, which is like you don't hardly see that as much from a starter these days. But
yeah, that's really cool. And Lance Lynn's a guy. It took him a long time to become this level of pitcher. He was always an okay, decent pitcher, but he'd been through a lot of teams, and it took him a long time, and he figured it out, and he's turned into an ace. So that's really cool for him. So.
Let's jump over to the AL West, where Oakland is leading this division, but only over by a half game over the Houston Astros. And they both struggled to 4-6 records this past 10 games.
Yeah, the A's. I think the A's have kind of stabilized. Where they had that long winning streak, and I believe it was the second week of the season. They started 0-6, and they won like 11 straight games or something.
Yeah.
And you have a team that. I think they're playing like their talent level. I think they're about a 500 talent level team that got hot for a little while early, but they've built up enough of a lead in the division to where having a little bit of a cooler week or two helps them. The Astros have been playing a really tough part of their schedule recently, and have gotten some good contributions from some guys. But Framber Valdez came back, which for them is very important because he was really good last year. They needed him to step in and pitch well, and so the Astros hitting the ball well this year. I think that they're probably the favorites at this point to win this division. The Mariners are closer than I would have expected them, but I still don't believe in their pitching staff to keep them up there. And then look at the Angels, and I mean, without Trout, you know, they're only 6 games under 500, which is bad, but it's not, completely out of it. But without Trout, I have a hard time believing this team's gonna pick anything up until he comes back in a month or two. So,
Oh yeah,
uh,
and not just that, but they need guys like Dylan Bundy to turn it around. Like I
yeah,
was
Dylan
looking the
Bundy's
other
been
day,
rough.
I was looking at it the other day, and he had like a 6.50 ERA or something so far this season. Like he's been terrible, and I did not expect that at all, especially
Yeah,
coming off the year he had last year.
yeah, it's one of those things where everyone's, complaining about the Angels and how they haven't gotten that pitching help, but they really did go out and get some guys to pitch. They The problem that they've had is that the guys that have pitched really well in the past year or two haven't pitched well, like
Hmm.
Bundy. I mean, it hadn't really been the Alex Cobb that they brought in, or the Jose Quintana hasn't been good, but they tried to get some guys to help them. They're under a little bit of a financial crunch. This is the last year of that because of Pujols' contract, but uh, they really just haven't had that, and then they haven't got the contribution that they wanted from Anthony Rendon this year either. He's battled injuries a couple times, and he's just been okay. So to his standards at least, so he'll be fine. He'll turn it around at some point. Trout will come back at some point. I do believe this team at some point will get hot when Trout's back and they have their lineup intact, but I just don't know if it's going to be in time to still contend in this division because I believe that as they're constructed right now, without Trout, they're a below 500 team, and they're going to continue to play like it until he comes back. Which in a few more weeks, if they play below 500 ball, they're probably not going to be there anymore. So
Yeah, and that's the part that sucks, especially for a team that we were so high on coming into the season. But I want to jump back to the Mariners real quick and say that they did just lose Kyle Lewis as well. He had a right meniscus tear, so that's probably going to keep him out for about 4 to 6 weeks. So as much as we weren't liking their pitching, we thought maybe some of their hitting could off balance that. Well, they just lost their rookie of the year and a major contributor on the
yeah,
offensive side of the ball for them.
yeah, no doubt. And it stinks. He's had knee injuries in the past, so hopefully he's able to come back from this pretty well.
Yeah. Well, let's jump over to the NL East and talk about the division leading Mets at 26-20, 3.5 games over Atlanta, and I think we just found out yesterday that Jacob DeGrom is an alien.
Yeah, I don't know. The interesting thing about Jacob DeGrom and what Damien's talking about, he came out in yesterday's game against Arizona, and his first 10 pitches were over 100 miles an hour. And then his 11th pitch was a nasty slider. He struck out two guys in the inning, and um,
The slider
his
was like 95 or
yeah,
something. It was like
yeah,
something
yeah.
stupid.
So I don't know, I don't know how he does it because we had you see guys a lot of times that come up and they gain some velocity when they change their mechanics as they're coming up in the minor leagues or when they first get to the majors. You have like a 25-year-old that makes his debut, pitches a year, and is sitting 95, and then all of a sudden next year he comes out and he's throwing more overhand or more sidearm or three quarters or something, and he's increased his velocity by a couple miles an hour. That happens, but a guy that's 32, 33, that rarely happens. And this guy Jacob DeGrom's just getting better and better and better, and it's hard to believe that he's just getting better. He was really good. I don't think people remember how good he was when he first came up. He won Rookie of the Year, and he was throwing 5 miles an hour slower on his fastball than he is now when he won
Yeah,
Rookie of the Year. Like
he's like
this
topping
guy
out at
is
97.
yeah, this guy is an absolutely insane pitcher, and he's really gonna be the reason that the Mets have success this year because their lineup's not very good. Lindor has been atrocious still at the plate. I read an article on him earlier about how his hard hit rates are way down, and the hard hit rates aren't way down, but his ground ball rate has just spiked this year, and it has been it's been rough for him this year. But one other piece that the Mets are going to lose, I don't know what the prognosis is on Syndergaard. I
Yeah.
haven't heard, but he had to get shut down from his rehab outings. But there's a lot of good for them too. They've got one of the bigger division leads in baseball. It might be the biggest right now. 6 games over 500. The bullpen's pitched well. They've got great contributions from Marcus Stroman. And
Hmm.
Taiwan Walker's pitched well for them, which I was kind of surprised that he has pitched as well as he has. So good for those two guys. They've really helped stabilize this rotation without not having Syndergaard and also not having Carrasco, who is expected to be a big piece for them this year. So The Mets have done really well. They are 15-5 at home, which is really incredible. I think their ability. I think they're playing at home has played up to their um, has played up to their roster with their pitching because they do still have a pretty good pitching park. So that's helped them a lot. But they've done well. So
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. You said they've done well, but they've also battled some stuff. Like you
oh
said,
yeah,
Carrasco's been out. Lindor
yeah.
isn't
That's
gonna
not
be this bad as he's been so far this year.
yeah
He might not be a great, but he is not going to be this bad.
yeah.
Conforto, he's on the IL, and he
Yep.
was also been
McNeil.
terrible. So far.
Yep.
McNeil's out.
McNeil's IL.
Dom Smith hasn't been as good as he was
Yeah.
last year, which I
And
mean, I don't
JD
think.
Davis has been out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, James McCann has been god awful. I mean, the past week he's kind of picked it up and played a little bit more like
I mean, I
what
fully
he got paid
expected him
for.
to be awful, but
Well, no, yeah, but I mean, this past week he's kind of picked it up a little bit. I
yeah,
mean,
he has. He's played
he
better.
I don't think he was as bad as what he was
Yeah,
playing like. Like that's my point is like they've still been good. They've even missed time from DeGrom, but a lot of their
yeah,
players are playing like below what you think they would play at.
yeah,
So they could even get better, which is, kind of scary.
yeah. One more note on Degrom before we move on from the Mets is that he is currently second in the National League in pitching WAR, and he's pitched like 20 fewer innings than everyone else because he missed 3 starts. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty incredible. So
He's an alien. That's all we
yes,
can say.
he really is just an incredible pitcher. So
He's like the real life version of that kid from Rookie of the Year, where the guy just like gets arm surgery and then it just throws super hard all of a sudden,
yeah,
but just without the surgery.
yeah. No surgery, but
Yeah.
just good.
Well, the Atlanta Braves had something interesting happen this week, and we won't want to dive too much into it because it's an ongoing legal issue. But Marcelo Zuna was arrested this week for spousal or domestic abuse of some sort. We don't know all the details, but supposedly the police witnessed it happen with their own eyes. Um, and if that's the case and everything is true, it's then becomes a felony. And he's up to minimum, or I'd say a minimum of 3 years in prison and up to 20. Pretty much, we don't want to dive too much into it because it's very touchy subject and everything, but this pretty much spells the end of, if any of this is true, of Marcelo Zuna sort of playing in Major League Baseball, most likely.
Yeah, and obviously we don't know what the circumstances were. We don't know what all is accurate, what all is not accurate, the reporting, everything. So I'm not going to comment on any of that stuff. Obviously, it sucks that the Braves are going to not have Ozuna for the team. It sucks for obviously the first thing we think about is Ozuna's family and everything, and hopefully he's able to change. If this is all true, he's able to change as a person and get better, and this type of thing doesn't happen again, and hopefully things, this makes everyone involved, a better person and whatever. But, um, you know, I mean, it's just a tough situation. He got injured last week before this happened, so he was going
Mm-hmm.
to be out for a while anyways. But this is a bad situation, and hopefully, they'll figure out a way to, if it's all true and he's, gets convicted or even if something like the charges are dropped, but it was obviously, but it was true, then hopefully there's a way that they can figure out to, the Major League Baseball handle it with the suspension, of course, as we've seen. I don't know if it's the end of his career just because you look around and you see, Aroldis Chapman's playing, Odubel Herrera's playing, Roberto Osuna, well, was playing after he got traded for during his, and Domingo Herman is playing. Jose Reyes played a long time after his. So I think a lot of it's on a case by case basis, and this looks like a really bad case. So, but we'll see what happens. I don't want to comment too much more than that on, without knowing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Um, so we'll move on to the Phillies. They had a 3-7 week this week. They're 5 games back in this division, but they're still also missing Bryce Harper. I don't know if we got that last week when the MLB Daily guys on, but Bryce Harper did go on the IL. I'm not sure what it's for, but rough week for Philadelphia. But kind of expected when you're missing your star player.
yeah, Philadelphia has had one real bright spot this year, and that's been the contributions of Zach Wheeler, who's on that big contract. But other than that, I mean, their bullpen's been a little bit better, but hadn't been good. I mean, Bryce Harper was playing really well before he got hit in the face, and then
Yeah.
ever since then he hadn't played well. And I think this is an unrelated injury that he's dealing with now. But
Let me
you know,
look up.
Aaron Nola hasn't been Aaron Nola like. You know, in the rest of their rotation, Eflin's been good. That's another bright spot. I should have mentioned Eflin, but I mean, they're just you know, just playing average ball, a little below 500. It's kind of like um, it's kind of like how the it's kind of like how they've been the last couple years. They seem like a team that's got a lot of talent, but they just can't put it together. So
Yeah, Bryce Harper's injury was a left forearm injury, so definitely
okay, yeah,
unrelated.
yeah, I thought it was something like that. So
Yeah, they did say that he's not going to be returning when he's first eligible though tomorrow. So, um, still probably a week or two out for Bryce Harper.
yeah, so
Um,
that stinks.
well, let's jump over to the NL Central.
Yeah, I
Um,
want to mention
oh,
one more thing in the NL East. Kind of a new development tonight. Steven Strasburg was pitching tonight, and I was watching as they're playing the Braves, and he was throwing 89-90 in the first inning, and they pulled him in the second inning. So he had been on the IL with shoulder injury. He had pitched a game last week. He came back and he's pitched again tonight, and he got pulled really early. So that doesn't bode well for the Nationals at all, who have really been struggling. But it's still worth mentioning when you've got a piece like Steven Strasburg there. So
yeah, especially since he's dealt with injuries throughout his
yep,
entire career. So,
yep, and this year specifically, it's this probably the same injury. So
yeah. Well, now let's jump over to the NL Central,
there you go.
where we have the Chicago Cubs now leading this division, albeit by a half game, but they went on a torrid pace this week. I mean, 8-2 over their last 10, with St. Louis kind of scuffling, only being 5-5, but Milwaukee's right there behind both of them at a game and a half back. They also went 8-2 over these past 10 games.
Yeah, this has been an interesting division. I think we kind of talked about how this might be the most entertaining division in baseball this year. There's a lot of other team divisions that were going to be really really interesting, but and maybe have better teams, but this was the most entertaining one. Chris Bryant for the Cubs has been spectacular this year. He's been back to his MVP form or better. That's been good for them. I saw something earlier where he had a like something like a 40 higher WRC plus that he did in his MVP year up to this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's going to keep it going or not, but he's been very good. You look at their bullpen; a lot of unknown guys have pitched super well for them. Tommy Nance has pitched well for them. Obviously, Kimbrel's a well-known guy, but he's kind of rejuvenated himself, pitched well for them. Keegan Thompson's pitched well for them out of the bullpen. You've got Andrew Chafin's pitched really well for them out of the bullpen. So they've had good bullpen contributions that we didn't expect. The rotation's been it's been okay. Alzolay's been a big piece for them, making a lot of improvements. But man, they've just been hitting the ball well, and Chris Bryant's been a big part of that. So good for him. I'm very glad to see him healthy because I think it's been a couple years since he's really been fully healthy for a season.
Yeah, and like you said, the Chris Bryant being MVP, Chris Bryant, I think that's one of the most fun players to watch when he's playing that way because he's one of the true hitters that can use the entire field and use it for anything. I mean, he can hit a homer down the right field line, he can pull a homer down the left field line, and
Yeah,
he can hit anything anywhere in between.
yeah,
I mean,
he's
most hitters when you see they're on are pull hitters or they're only power to one side, and he's a guy who is anywhere. I mean, he can hit
yeah
the
he's
ball
good.
anywhere.
Yeah,
So,
but yeah,
uh,
he's good. And the Cubs, I mean, the Cubs have been playing good baseball. I mean, they've
they
got
have
some
been.
good contributions from pieces we didn't expect, and I think there's a good chance they can hang in there.
Yeah, I mean, especially now, a big thing for St. Louis is in their game last night, actually against the Dodgers. Jack Flaherty injured his oblique swinging a bat, so I mean that's going to bring up the whole DH debate again. But sounds like it's a pretty severe oblique strain and that he's going to miss quite a lot of time. And them being second in the division, only a half game back, missing one of their better pitchers. I mean, we wouldn't call him an ace, but he's their best pitcher most likely. And he had been playing a little bit better recently. Not kind of to what his 2019 levels were, but that's still a big blow for that Cardinals team, losing one of their, top of the rotation type guys.
Yeah, this is really their only top of the rotation type guy right now. I mean, Wainwright's pitched well at times this year, but I
Like,
mean,
Gant's been pretty solid. He has like
yeah,
a
I mean,
1.99 ERA.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I believe in John Gant, but
Well, I
um,
mean, just so far this year.
Yeah,
He's
so
played
far
like it.
so far this year, his
Yeah.
ERA, he's got a 181 ERA, but like a 5 xFIP and a 4 FIP. So I don't expect he's averaging 6 walks per 9 right now and only 7
Jesus.
strikeouts. So I mean, he's been possibly the luckiest pitcher in baseball. So I don't especially believe John Gant's going to keep this up, the rest of the year. But um, that they've got other guys like Carlos Martinez has been at times in the past good, but hasn't really been there this year. Kim obviously has pitched pretty good bit this year, and he's just, they got a lot of middle to back end of the rotation types. But I mean, Arenado and Goldschmidt and some contributions from guys like Dylan Carlson and guys like that are. It's really been good on offense for this team. Defense, Yadier Molina has been good this year, so it's good stuff for them.
Yeah, Milwaukee, we're telling their game and a half back. They've just got Christian Yelich. We just got Christian Yelich back. And like they said, they made that trade for Willie Adames, so that'll be a big key for them because they had really got nothing from their shortstop, players so far. Luis Urias had a big game this past week, a couple doubles and a walk off for them. So Milwaukee could be a you know a sneaky team to make a little bit more of a run here as they're getting a little bit healthier. Of course, with Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Freddie Peralta, all being there and pitching pretty damn good for them. So could be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, this is a team that, I mean, Brandon Woodruff has just been so good. He's incredible. Sub 2 ERA, and he's another guy that's just getting better and better. So good for him. Corbin Burns, we've talked about him a lot. He's still pitching really well. Freddie Peralta has been impressive to me. This just strikes out a lot of guys. Hauser had been good for a while. He's kind of hit the skids a little bit, but you look in their bullpen, and you've got Josh Hader's got like an 0.80 ERA, so it's pretty impressive if you ask me.
Yeah,
But
and that's with Devin Williams even struggling so far.
yeah, Devin Williams has walked a lot of guys this year, and he's struggled a little bit. So um, I think this team needs offensive help a lot. It's a weird team because I don't know if I've ever seen a team that was this bad offensively that had this good of pitching. So maybe if they're hanging in there like they have so far, though, at the deadline, they could probably go grab some offensive help. There's going to be a lot of big time players available there, and they've already tried to help with the Willie Adames acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
So, you look forward, and this is a team that could really use first baseman. They could really use. I mean, they could really use just about anything. But I mean, Colton Wong has locked in at short, and Kane's been playing pretty well. He's locked in center, and then you got Yelich, who's going to be locked in the outfield. But other than that, I mean, you could really look to upgrade pretty much anywhere. So this is a team that I think if you look at the Brewers, I think out of the contenders in each division, this team has the most room for growth at the deadline. And I think they're going to do something. They've been real aggressive in the past at the deadline. They acquired Scope, they acquired Mustakas. They've done a lot of aggressive moves at the deadline in the past that I think that could continue this year.
Well, just in the history too, Sabathia is and Greinke.
Oh yeah.
A couple of them, but
yeah, for sure.
Well, let's move over to the NL West now, where San Francisco is back leading this division by a half game. They had a big series this weekend against the Dodgers and took 3 of the 4 in LA, which was really good after getting swept by the Dodgers in San Francisco the week before. I wasn't really big on San Francisco, and I still don't think that they're as good as they've been playing, but they have surprised me. And there are guys that on this team that are really surprising me. Evan Longoria looks really, really good again.
He's had a great week.
Buster Posey, I mean, his year's been fantastic. Who was the other guy that was lighting us up? Man, I forget. There was one more guy that they had that was just playing insane against LA this weekend. But they're pitching too. Gossman had a really good, game against them. Really good game against Arizona as well. But I'll talk about him a little bit. Hint, hint. But San Diego, I mean, they're right there. I mean, the top 3 teams in this division went 6-4 this week. San Diego's a half game back. LA's 2 back. and I just think this is going to be a battle throughout the entire year. I expect at one point San Diego and the Dodgers will kind of separate themselves a little bit more from San Francisco, but I mean San Francisco is playing really well and they might stick around.
Yeah, I expect San Francisco to contend for that number 2 wild card spot, but not to contend for the top not to continue
Of the division.
for the top of the division. Yeah,
Yeah.
I expect them to continue for the wild card spot at this point. And I mean, you look around, and I think it's attainable right now because you look at the NL East, and I think that the second team in the NL East is going to have a hard time getting that wild card spot with the current records. They're going to have to play two teams in the NL East are really going to have to play well for this number 2 team in the NL East to get that wild card spot. So, if the Mets end up winning the division, and I think if the Mets end up being the wild card, the second place team in that division, someone else gets hot with Braves, Phillies, whoever, then if the Mets end up the second place team, I think the Mets are very well in contention for that. But if another team wins it, I don't know if like the Braves or the Phillies, I don't think they're really gonna win 90 games. So it would take the Mets winning under 90 games for that, and I don't know if under 90 games is going to get you in this year with one of the spots being locked up by number 2 in the West, basically, whether it's the Padres or Dodgers, whoever finishes second. So I really do believe that the Giants have a good shot at that number 2 spot. I think the Cardinals and the Brewers also have a shot at that because they're going to beat up a lot on the Reds and the Reds aren't terrible, but they're going to beat up a lot on the Pirates, and it's interesting to look at that the National League is going to be a dogfight the rest of the year. So.
Yeah, and one thing to note is that as we were recording this, Fernando Tatis got removed from his game today with oblique tightness. So a possible another injury. Hopefully it doesn't turn into anything serious. But as we were just talking about, oblique strains can be, you know, long-term injuries. I mean, for
Yeah,
in a season, they can be 6 to 8 week injuries.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so
That's unfortunate, and I wonder if this is at all related to some of the changes he's made in his follow through on his swing. That maybe he's using different muscles in his follow through that he used in the past, but that's just speculation. I don't know. So
yeah. I mean, it's been quite a while, so I wouldn't think so. I mean, we've seen a lot of oblique kind of type side tightness injuries already this
yeah,
year, so I don't think it's really related to that, but who knows? It could be.
yeah, and soft
Um,
tissue injuries in general. I mean,
yeah,
leg injuries too. I mean,
yeah. The Dodgers sitting in third in this division, 2 games back. Just kind of their same thing we've talked about all year. They battling some injuries, got Cody Bellinger back. Gonna kind of starts looking like they're gonna get healthier. AJ Pollock should be back this week. Gonsolin should be back this week. And Seager shouldn't be too far back behind them. I think maybe a couple weeks, but they are a team that's battled with that most of the year. So who knows? We'll see. Hopefully Tatis isn't really injured that bad and he can get out there and that all these teams can get healthy and really fight it out, because it seems like this division has been really marred by a lot of the injury bug here. I know all baseball has, but these 3 teams really in general have kind of dealt with that the
yeah,
most.
the NL East and the NL West, it seems like both divisions have had a lot of teams get injuries. I mean, you look at the East, and you've got 3 teams. Their star offensive players missed a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's Acuna's missed time. You look at the the Harper's missed time, Soto's missed time. I mean, Conforto, Davis, McNeil, whoever you want
Jacob
to pick out of that's
Jacob
missed time.
DeGrom.
But yeah, I was talking about the offensive players, but
Hey,
I mean
he's
Degrom obviously too.
he's
So
he's batting 460.
that is true. He is a good
Just
hitter
saying.
for a pitcher. So
Yeah.
and then you look at the West. I mean Tatis, Bellinger. They're really the only team that hasn't been beat up in the West. Out of the 3 contenders has been the Giants so far, which it's just the one that you would it's kind of unexpected because obviously the Giants are the ones that have a lot of the veteran 35-year-old players like Posey and Longoria, Crawford, Belt, all these guys. So I think that's been pretty interesting. But it's interesting, and I hate that there's been so many injuries around baseball. But we're getting to a point where in the season where you do typically start to see some of these things pop up, and um, hopefully guys get back. And I'm glad that the Dodgers are starting to get healthy. You never want to see a guy like Cody Bellinger miss a lot of time or anything like that, or Seager when he comes back, whatever. You don't want to see anybody like that miss time. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited for the season going forward, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and jump over to the players of the week and then wrap this show up. Um, so for my pitcher this week, I kind of talked about him a little bit, but that's Kevin Gossman. Um, he just had an insane week. I mean, 11 innings pitched, 7 hits given up, but 0 runs, 2 walks, 16 strikeouts. He was absolutely dominating the Dodgers on Saturday or on Sunday. Um, Probably, I mean, he would have went longer into the game, but he kind of had fielded a ground ball weird and got a little hip discomfort, so they pulled him only through I think 6. Um, so he should have pitched even more, and he was just straight dominant. I think he had like 70 pitches or something in the 6th. It was just pure domination. But he's had a really good year as well. So shout out to Kevin Gausman. I mean, we've talked about him before, but 13 strikeouts per 9 this week. Leaving everybody on base, 29% ground ball rate isn't great. I mean, that's a guy that usually gets a lot more ground balls. So to have this good peripherals with that kind of a ground ball rate, I mean, could even get better. So
Yeah, that's really impressive for Kevin Gossman. He's been good. But my pitcher of the week is Rich Hill, the old man.
yes,
41 years old.
something like that.
2 starts this week, 10 strikeouts per 9, 1 walk per 9, a 138 ERA, and 13 innings pitched. So I think he had a 13 strikeout game the other day. He has been, we'll just call it very good recently, and really in his last several starts he's been really good. So some of that Rays magic, but he's been terrific for them. And the one thing you do worry about with Rich Hill, as we've talked about so much, seems like this year is injuries, and he's been healthy this year so far, and he's a guy who always seems to battle something. So hopefully he's able to stay healthy for a while and pull out a good full season. So
Man, I love me some Rich Hill, man.
yeah,
I mean, Rich Hill is awesome. Main thing that he deals with is blisters. So
yeah,
if he can find a way to keep the blisters down, he's always been a very good pitcher when he pitches.
yep.
It's just, can he
He
keep?
always gets
Yeah,
those blisters
he
every
always
year.
gets those blisters every single year, like you're saying. So hopefully he can keep those away, and we can see some Rich Hill out there, because the way he leg kicks off the mound and grunts is just awesome.
Yeah.
But
He throws about 6 different curveballs too, which I
yeah,
found awesome.
and he throws for like 70% of the time. Like he throws his
Yeah.
curveball like
Oh, he hits
so much.
all curveballs, and he throws them so much
Yeah,
and different ones, and it's so cool. But
yeah.
good for him.
So who do you got for your hitter of the week?
My hitter this week's gonna be Carlos Correa. He hit 444 this week with 643 on base and an 899 slugging. I think that the biggest thing about it was that he's got a 35% walk rate this week, which is, I mean, pretty unbelievable. I haven't seen, that's a pretty dang good week to have a 35% walk rate. So, other than that, he's had, a couple home runs and, uh, 5 RBIs, 7 runs scored. He hadn't struck out a ton. It's 14%, which is low. If a lot of times when we have our players of the week, that'd be a little bit higher than typical for that. But he's got a 302 WRC plus this week, just very good. And he's been really good. He led the league in wins above replacement the past week in 6 games. So good for him.
Yeah, that is awesome. I hate to say that Carlos Correa had an
Yeah.
awesome week.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna hear that. You would hear that from just about everybody, but
I know.
at the same time, you got to give the guy props.
Yeah, I do.
Obviously, there's been times where the Astros have seemed to not mind the not cheating thing. So
Yeah. Well, my hitter this week is going to go to Hunter Renfroe of the Boston Red Sox. Um, Really an underrated guy this year that the Boston picked up. But the big thing with him about this week is that his strikeout rate, when he doesn't strike out, he's actually a really good hitter, but his strikeout rate this week was 6.3%, which weirdly is identical to his walk rate this week. So he was identical in walks and strikeouts this week. He batted 600 with a 625 on base and a 1.333 slugging. Matt talked about Carlos Correa having a 302 WRC plus. How about a 430 WRC plus for Hunter Renfroe?
yeah,
And the weird part about it is that he was still slightly unlucky. He batted 600 this week and was still slightly unlucky. So, and didn't strike out. So what a really good week from Hunter Renfroe. And, I'm not saying that this is going to be the Hunter Renfroe going forward, but if we could see a little bit more of this, I mean, that could be a big bat for Boston to, have in that lineup.
Yeah, and, just to expand a little bit on Hunter Renfroe, he this season has been really good defensively, which is kind of surprising because he's had one positive defensive year in his career in 2019. This year he's been really good defensively, and he's actually been a good player this year. Almost put up last year he was in the negatives and wins above replacement. Part of that being due to a really low BABIP. But he's already up to one this year, wins above replacement, and he's looked pretty good. It's rare that the Rays lose a transaction like this, but he seems to be playing really well for the Red Sox. So
Absolutely. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this show, unless you have anything else.
not too much else to add. We'll talk a little bit next week. It's crazy, this time, well, not this time of the year last year, but this time of the season, we'd be talking about the last week of the season and who was getting in and who wasn't getting in and the pennant races and stuff. And we're at 55 games and we got over 100 games left to be played. So
Isn't that awesome?
I think it's pretty crazy that how weird that shortened season was. It puts it into perspective a little bit. Right now, we're just kind of talking about who's off to good starts. Last year, it's what's good. This is the season. So. But we're next week we'll have a cool episode where we'll talk about some of our preseason guys that we had picked to do well, and we'll talk about who we feel like has been the 60 game MVPs and Cy Youngs and all that kind of stuff. And I think that'll be really interesting to look at, just basically the first 2 months award winners.
Can we not? Can we not look at that stuff?
Well, why would we not?
Because I don't want to.
You don't want you're upset because the Dodgers wouldn't be in the
No,
division.
I'm upset because of my awards choices.
Oh,
I'm sitting here looking at it right now. Yikes!
yeah, that's not good.
Well, you guys will laugh at me next week when you see what I'm looking at right now and what we were talking about today's episode. But
it won't be the first time.
But that's for next week. So you guys just make sure to come back next week so you can just openly mock me for how bad my awards predictions were.
There will be mocking at lots of it.
Oh yeah, lots of it. So. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of the Batflip Podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week.
All right, thanks everybody.